What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Seth Floyd Show, brought to you this time live from my office here at my day job. A little busy later, not going to be able to record, so I thought I'd take some time at lunch, crank out a video for you about the most interesting team in the NFL and the toughest division to predict. Before we get there, please like, subscribe to the page. Okay, we are up to 29 subscribers, which is freaking awesome. One more to 30, and that means I'm only one subscriber away from only being 970 subscribers to 1,000. Do that math. That's awesome. I appreciate you, though, for real, for subscribing to the page, liking my video. My last video, well, my AFC West video about the Chargers is done. It's been the best video so far, over 250 views. Freaking awesome. So today we're going to talk about another division, trying to make some predictions. Maybe that video did well too, possibly because of some of the video cuts that have been dropped in there. So I got to tell you guys about this real quick. I don't edit my videos, okay? It's my older brother, Josh, okay, who we're really tight, but Josh kind of has a mind of his own. Okay, so we have this deal. The deal was, look, man, I need you to edit some of my videos. I need you to have like an intro and outro, some of that, make sure it sounds okay. And he said he would do that, but he wanted to include one thing into our non-official contract was he also had the freedom, the creative freedom to kind of do whatever else he wanted. Some of it's all right. Some of it is questionable. Okay, some of it's crap. What? So let me know what you think. Okay. I know my brother, he's going to do what he wants. I love him for that, but also kind of hate him for that. Gotcha. The Jets and the AFC East. Guys, what are the Jets? What are the New York Jets? I think they're the most interesting team in the NFL because I think they have the widest range of outcomes. Okay? If at the end of the year we fast forward to March of 2025 and we're reflecting on the 2024 football season, and you told me that was crazy. Aaron Rodgers looked great, and the Jets went on a run with that great defense, those weapons, and they won the Super Bowl. I'd be like, man, that is crazy. That is crazy. But I would believe it. I'd be like, man, I didn't predict them to win the Super Bowl, but I'm not shocked because of the roster that they had. You could also tell me in March of 2025 to say, man, it really came off the rails for the Jets. The front office was terrible. Robert Saleh really doesn't have it together as a coach. And the Jets went 7-10 again, and they missed the playoffs. And I'd be like, yeah, that was crazy, believable. Not what I think will happen, but it would be believable. I don't think there's another team in the NFL where their whole roster could stay healthy, and you could have that wide range of outcomes. That's truly how I feel. So I was diving into this morning, and I'm just doing some research. I've been doing research, but today I was kind of doing my final little tune-ups. And I don't know, do you guys remember Aaron Rodgers' last season in Green Bay? I feel like it gets forgotten and brushed over a lot, partly because of what happened last season, okay, where he played 4 plays and tore his Achilles. And man, that was crazy. That was awful for my fantasy team. Garrett Wilson had a lot of hope and stock placed into Garrett Wilson on my fantasy team, and just out the window. Thanks a lot, Aaron Rodgers, Achilles. Okay, real cool. Same with Nick Chubb, by the way. Had a lot of stock. I traded a lot for Nick Chubb, and thanks a lot, Nick Chubb's knee. That was less about Nick Chubb's knee, and he just had a freak accident. Anyway, whatever. None of those guys don't care about me. They don't care about me. They don't care about my fantasy team. It's freaking garbage. Freaking crap. Rodgers, last season in Green Bay, okay? 3,700 yards, basically. 26 touchdowns, 12 picks. Okay, 26 touchdowns, 12 picks. They went 8-9 and missed the playoffs. If you remember, they lost that game to the Lions and missed the playoffs. Now, they didn't have Devontae Adams, and their receivers that are good now, like I know they have a crazy, electric, athletic receiving core now. Those guys were really young. I'm not even positive who was on the team that year. I know Christian Watson was. I don't think Romeo Doubs was. Anyway, the point is, even if those guys were on the team, they were still rookies and young, and clearly didn't have their feet under them yet. So take it for what it's worth, but Rodgers did not look great. He definitely looked like a different quarterback without Devontae Adams. And that's the last time we've seen him play. And then he tore his Achilles. So, like, is he just going to come back and be what he was before? Is he even going to come back to that 2022 season? 3,700 yards, 26 TDs, 12 picks. I mean, I don't know. I guess he could. Rodgers' game has never been predicated on, I mean, he's mobile, but it's not speed that his game is predicated on. His mobility is just like within the pocket, scrambling a little bit outside the pocket. None of that is based off of electric speed. It's the same deal with Kirk Cousins. Like, yes, it sucks for Kirk that he's got to come back from his Achilles, but it's not a running back coming back from his Achilles. It's not a defensive back, not a position or a player that relies on their speed. So I don't think it'll hurt them too much or affect their game too much, but you don't know. That's the wild card. You just don't know, especially because he's so old, man. It's tough. It's tough to really be able to predict. So when I woke up this morning and I knew I was going to record this video, like, I'd been going back and forth on how I think the Jets will finish this season. I think I'd woken up this morning thinking they're going to finish second. But the more I was like taking notes and going through this, I might have talked myself out of that thought. And it's a scary thing. That's why the AFC East is so crazy. The AFC East is so crazy outside just the Jets because the Bills have won it the last few years. And the Dolphins have come really close to winning it. So realistically, like, all three of those teams could win the AFC East. And you might not, I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't count on the Dolphins winning it, but I don't think you can count them out completely. And sorry, Patriots fans, man, you guys might have the number 1 overall pick going into next season. In fact, if you want to give the 49ers your first round pick in 2025 for Brandon Ayuk, done. I'll even send back a 3rd round pick if you really want, because you're going to be picking in the top 5. Good chance you'll be picking first overall. I think there's a good chance. I don't think Drake May is going to come in and blow the doors off. I don't think Jacoby Brissett, if he's your starter, is going to blow the doors off. Not sure what to make of Gerard Mayo. I think you got real problems in New England. That's what I'll say about New England, okay? But the AFC East as a whole is so hard to figure out. The Jets, on top of it, let's before we jump into the other teams, the Jets, the other thing that makes me nervous is I don't know how good of a coach Robert Saleh is. I love Robert Saleh. He was the defensive coordinator in that 2019 Super Bowl for the 49ers. I didn't love him in that Super Bowl, if we're going to be honest, not on that 3rd and forever pick. By the way, look at this helmet. Freaking awesome. If you can see it, you should be able to see it. This is a signed Jerry Rice helmet on this, like, alternate helmet. Pretty freaking awesome. I have it in my office. You can probably see, I don't know if you can see, hopefully you can. Got a Dwight Clark jersey signed back there. Pretty awesome. Got some good 49er stuff in my office at work. I'm not sure what Robert Saleh is as a head coach. He, great defensive coordinator, but has made some questionable calls here as a head coach. It's crazy he's had his job this long, given the lack of success, but he gets a pass because of last year with Rodgers going down. So I don't know. It's hard to really pinpoint it, but what I do know about the Jets is they have a top 5 roster in the NFL. Defensively, they should be near the top. Even last year, their defense wasn't at the top, but part of this is because the offense couldn't do anything. They just couldn't do anything. And as a defense, you can only do so much when your offense doesn't give you any help. So I'm really kind of throwing out some of those statistics. I know what they are on paper. I know that they have a bunch of dogs on that defense, okay? And they're going to be good this year defensively. Offensively, if Rodgers can stay healthy, you've got Garrett Wilson. They just signed Mike Williams. You've got Breece Hall, who, if you play fantasy football at all, you know about Breece Hall. You know what he's going to be. The question on their offense is their offensive line. Now, I know they've addressed that in the draft and in free agency, but it can't be worse than it was last year. That's what I'll say. So on paper, they're like a top 5 roster. It's just a matter of, is their coach legit? What is Rodgers going to be at his age? Can they put it together? I don't know. There's a lot of question marks. Now, you're looking at the Bills, who've won it the last few years. I think that It's tough to bet against the best quarterback in the division. I know Rodgers is an all-time great, but I don't expect him to play like an all-time great this year. You've got Josh Allen. And I think Josh Allen's actually a little polarizing because he was not good in the middle of the year last year. The first half of the year was not great for him. He played really well down the stretch, got him into the playoffs, won the division, didn't play great in the playoffs. I say that, but I just mean they lost to the Chiefs. That's kind of what I'm saying. I don't even remember the game against the Bills. I know it was closer than it probably should have been. They didn't pull it out against the Chiefs. Missed field goal by the Bills kicker, so I get it. But he hasn't gotten over that playoff hump, I'll say that. But he's one of the better quarterbacks in the league. I'd probably put him at 2 or 3. Really, really good. Sean McDermott, probably not like an all-time great coach, but he's proven that he's built a winning culture there. But they had like a large exodus of players. That's what makes me nervous about the Bills, the roster turnover for the Bills. Okay, losing Jordan Poyer, Tre'Davious White. Did I say Tre'Davious? Yes, it's Tre'Davious White. In their secondary, okay, they traded away Stephon Diggs, which Diggs might be addition by subtraction.
Addition by addition.
I think he's probably he was a distraction. He was unhappy in Minnesota and they shipped him off. Okay, it works out that they used that pick on Justin Jefferson, but he at the end of his time here in Buffalo, like I'm sure that was taking a toll on the team. It's probably a little bit refreshing that he's gone. He's very talented, but man, you got to get the distractions out of the locker room. Losing Gabe Davis, who, man, if you're into fantasy, you know how frustrating Gabe Davis was, but he's gone. Okay, so they have had a lot of roster turnover. Okay, they signed like Curtis Samuel, which fine, like he's a nice piece, but he's not like a number one. They drafted Keon Coleman out of Florida State, who I love Keon Coleman, but man, you know how I am about rookies. Like to think he's just going to come in and be like a game changer, like I don't know, second round pick. Like, I don't know. It's really tough to place your hope in that. The truth is, too, like, the Bills weren't great last season. Like, they weren't. I know they won the division. They had the same record as the Dolphins, won the tiebreaker in that final Sunday night game. But for the first part of the season, it was like, are they just going to miss the playoffs? And I don't think roster-wise on paper, what have they done to get better? That makes you go, oh, okay, like, they have fixed these holes. Like, I'm not there with them. So that makes me pretty nervous. Okay? I will talk about the Dolphins here in a second, and then I'll tell you exactly who I think is going to win this division. But I want to compare schedules. I'm big into that. I think that it makes a difference. It makes a difference when you have a team that has an easy schedule because they finished in last place last year versus a team that has to play all the best teams from the year before. Like, that makes a difference to me. Now, one of the hesitations I've had about the Jets all offseason is, okay, they have a patchwork kind of new offensive line they're hoping for, but an offensive line, it takes time to gel. So if you have new pieces on your offensive line, I don't expect you to dominate coming out of the gate. And for me, that's been one of my things about the Jets is, okay, their offensive line might figure it out, but it's going to be like halfway through the season. Well, then I'm looking at their schedule to start the year, and the schedule is super favorable for them to be able to figure it out. Okay, these are their first 10 games. Okay, their first 10 games. So week 1, they're Monday night on the road against the 49ers. I expect the 49ers to win that. I bet it's probably a good game, fairly close, like probably a one-scored, a 10-point game going into the fourth quarter. But I don't think that their offensive line is going to hold up well enough, and I think that Aaron probably won't be on the same page with everything with his receivers. Like week 1, probably not. I think the Niners are gonna take them, and I know I'm a Niner fan, but whatever. That's truly how I feel. But then look at their next games at the Titans. Okay, weren't a playoff team last year. Not expecting them to be a playoff team this year. Home against the Patriots. I already told you, I think they could be the number 1 overall pick. They get the Broncos. Like, depending on how you feel about the Broncos, Bo Nix is their quarterback, Jarrett Stidham the quarterback. I don't know. I don't think they're going to be in the playoffs. That game's at home. Then they play the Vikings. Okay, Vikings in London. Okay, but they play the Vikings nonetheless. J.J. McCarthy or Sam Darnold, I don't know. They could be all right. I think they're a well-coached team. Not a playoff team last year. Wouldn't expect them to be in the playoffs this year. Then they get the Bills at home. Okay, so they haven't had a true road game. The Vikings game's in London, but that's a neutral field. Haven't had a true road game since week 2. They get the Bills at home. Okay, that's going to be a tough game, but they get them at home. And on paper, I like the Jets roster more than the Bills roster. Okay, then after that, they go to Pittsburgh. Okay, I know they were a playoff team last year, but the weakest playoff team probably in the playoffs. No one is scared of Russell Wilson. No one's scared of Justin Fields. I'm not. I don't know. I don't think they're a playoff team this year. But they do play in Pittsburgh, so maybe that evens it out. They go to the Patriots in New England, but not very good. They get the Texans at home. That's a tough game. And then they go to the Cardinals. So out of those teams, you're only playing 1, 2, 3 teams, 4 teams that were in the playoffs last year, but only 1, 2 teams, 3 teams that I would expect to be in the playoffs. I mean, after 10 games, they realistically could be 7-3, 8-2. Like, I don't know. I wouldn't have said that when I woke up this morning, but I'm looking at their schedule and you're like, oh, you feel pretty good about them after their first 10 games. It's going to get a little tougher down the stretch. In comparison, let's look at the Bills' schedule. Okay, just taking it right off the top. I don't think the Bills, I think that the Bills are going to be the same as what they were last year, and last year they weren't like a powerhouse. They started the Cardinals at home. That's a win. But then they go to the Dolphins. Division game could be tough. Jaguars, I know they disappointed last year, but Trevor Lawrence, new deal, like they not going to be an easy out. Not going to be an easy out, okay? And then look at this. They go 3 straight games on the road. They go to the Ravens, to the Texans, and then to the Jets. Like, that's a tough 3-game stretch. They're not going to win all 3 of those games. They might drop 2 of them. And if you told me they dropped all 3, I wouldn't think it's the end of the world as far as like craziest prediction or craziest outcome. Okay, that's a tough stretch right there. And then get the Titans at home. That's a win. They go to Seattle, probably a win, but there's a lot of unknown with Seattle. Seattle could be better, and it's in Seattle. They got to go cross country, so that's tough. Then they get the Dolphins at home, and then the Colts on the road. Colts were good last year. They missed the playoffs, but they were good. Steichen over there has some stuff cooking for the Colts. Okay, so if you told me that's the first 10 games for the Bills, if you told me they were 5-5, 6-4, like, I don't know, man. That's a tough way to start your season if you've got the Jets out in front. I don't know. I'm just saying I see a scenario where the Bills aren't as good. They're not as good, and the Jets just put it together. Like, I can see that. It's not a lock. It's not a guarantee. I've already told you I could also see a world where the Jets just miss the playoffs altogether. But on paper, the Jets should be good. Let's look at the Dolphins. I don't mean to just completely discredit the Dolphins. I already told you, I think there's a world where the Dolphins win the AFC West, but I'm definitely not picking it. And out of the 3 top contenders for the AFC West, I'm putting them at 3. And here's why. There's uncertainty with Tua, okay? There's uncertainty. They've got this contract situation. I think that could play into it. I like Tua a lot. I like Tua a lot. I think he deserves to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. I have a hard time seeing the Dolphins win a Super Bowl with Tua, but I don't blame them for giving him a contract. We'll see what it looks like, that actual contract, but he's better than most of your alternatives. So whatever that means, that's my opinion on him. But the Dolphins essentially to me are the Cowboys of the AFC. What I mean is they bully on inferior teams, and then they kind of crumble against teams better than them. And so you just kind of look at their schedule, and they're going to beat who they're better than, some of the bottom feeders, but then they're going to get smacked around a little bit against better teams. For case in point, look at last season. They only beat 1 team that made the playoffs last year. 1 team, and that team was the Cowboys, funny enough. That close game where they beat them like 22-20, they were at home, and they beat the Cowboys. So that's what I think about them. I mean, defensively, they hired a new defense coordinator from the Ravens, so maybe they'll be better. But they lost Christian Wilkins. That's a big loss. They didn't do anything. I mean, that makes me feel like, oh man, they're going to be a ton better. I think they signed Jordan Poyer from the Bills, so that helps them. But nothing that makes me feel like, oh gosh, they're going to be way better. I know they still have Jalen Ramsey. Like, that should help, but he's an older Jalen Ramsey. They had Jalen for about half the season last year. So I don't know. They signed Odell Beckham Jr. Like, great, guys. What does that even do for you? What does that even do for you? Your problem has not been at wide receiver. You've got Tyreek Hill. You've got Jalen Waddle. But here's the problem. Jalen Waddle's had trouble staying healthy. Got a new contract. But you're not getting Jalen Waddle 100% of the time. Tyreek Hill is Tyreek Hill. But, man, can we talk about Tyreek Hill just having a million kids with people not his wife, with women that aren't his wife? How come no one's making a big stink over that? I don't know. Maybe it's too personal. I don't need to get into that. But no, everyone's just like, oh yeah, Tyreek's having another kid with like his 5th different woman. I don't know, whatever. Maybe I shouldn't get into that. Just crazy. There's a lot of weird stuff going on in Miami apparently. And they're going to be able to run the ball. But there's been teams that show like you can shut them down. It's happened. They've shut people down before. They've gotten shut down by teams before. Like losing to the Chiefs, losing to the Bills. Like there are teams. I know. Look, last year they beat they put 70 on the Broncos, and everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, here come the Dolphins!" And then like the next week they're just not that good. So I think they can be stopped. They've shown to be a juggernaut at times, but they just do what the Cowboys do. They beat up on bad teams and expose them, and then when they get hit in the mouth by a good team, they kind of crumble a little bit. And I don't see any reason they're going to be different this year. I could be wrong, but the biggest reason, though, this is my biggest reason why I don't think they're going to win the AFC East, okay? Again, I'm comparing schedules because it matters. It matters. Unless you're just a really good team and there's no other great teams in your division, like the schedule's going to play a factor in this. Look at these last 6 games for the Dolphins, okay? Starting in week 13. I just want to, before I read this off, okay? Do you guys remember what happens to the Dolphins when they play in the cold? You guys remember that? Now, I know it was extremely cold in Kansas City in that playoff game, but they look pretty inept, and historically, lately at least, they have not been great in the cold. Tua specifically, okay? Week 13, at Green Bay, okay? I think that game's in November, late November, okay? At Green Bay. Then they come home to the Jets, but they're playing the Jets. So the Packers, who are like the sexiest, hottest up-and-coming team, okay, playing the Packers on the road. Then they play the Jets, who I think are going to be better than the Dolphins, okay? Then they go to the Texans. It's not a cold weather game, but it's to the Texans, who are the other up-and-coming sexy team that everyone's really high on. I'm probably higher on the Texans than I am the Packers. I'll talk about that at some point, but I'm a D'Amico Ryans believer, definitely a CJ Stroud believer, Nico Collins believer, Tank Dell believer. Like, anyway, the Texans have it rolling, okay? And they play in an easier division than the Packers do. Then they come home against the Niners. Like, yes, they're at home, not a cold weather game. The Niners have to come across country, but oh boy, that's not easy. Like, that's not easy. The Niners were in the Super Bowl last year. The Niners are going to be a NFC powerhouse again this year. Not easy. Then they go to Cleveland, week 17. This is on December 29th. Now, Cleveland, I don't know what you make of them. I don't think they're a playoff team this year, but that's more because I don't believe in Deshaun Watson, okay? But they're going to have a great defense again, and they're playing in Cleveland, in the cold, December 29th. It's going to be cold. Cleveland is really tough to play. It's a tough place to play. That's a tough game for the Dolphins. December 29th. It's going to be real cold. And then they finish the season against the Jets in New York. Okay, going to be cold. January game, going to be cold. That's how they finish their season. So, Dolphins fans, you better not have more than 4 losses. That's the most you can have going into that 6-game stretch because you're going to lose 3 of them. At the very best, you're going to go 3-3 in that stretch. Okay, you're probably going to lose 4 or 5 of those games. It would be my guess. You could lose all 6 for all I know. We'll see how the season plays out. But I would not put money on you to win 3 or more of those games. I wouldn't. That's tough. Cold weather games, 3 really cold weather games, and then your warm weather games, you got to play the Texans, the 49ers. Like, that's tough. That's tough. So because of that, I don't think you're winning the AFC East. I'll tell you who I think is winning the AFC East, guys. When I woke up this morning with this video in mind, okay, I had the Bills winning the AFC East. And as I'm writing down my notes and doing my last kind of research for it, I freaking talked myself in to the Jets winning the AFC East, which I don't think is the boldest prediction. Like, USA Today even just came out with their predictions. They had the Jets winning the AFC East. They had the Jets winning the Super Bowl. I don't think the Jets are winning the Super Bowl. But I'm just looking at everything as a collective, as a whole, And given that I don't think the Bills were even that great last year, they played better down the stretch. I think the Jets have it as long as their team stays healthy and Rodgers' game just hasn't fallen off a cliff. They should win the East. They won 7 games last year with Zach Wilson as their quarterback. I know they had, I don't know, it wasn't Mike White. Who did they have? Trevor Siemian? Did he get a few games? Whatever. That's as bad as Zach Wilson, in my opinion. Zach Wilson at quarterback, and they won 7 games. They won 7-10. So you got to figure Rodgers and a capable offense combined with that defense, like they're going to win 11 games, 12 games. I think their floor has got to be 10 unless it just falls off and Rodgers just doesn't look that good or his other Achilles blows out on him. Like, man, I don't know. That's what I think. But I don't feel great about it because the AFC East is so tough to predict. But I guess my official prediction, I've made like 3 official predictions now, okay? I've had the Cowboys win the NFC East, which, guys, since I've made that video, I feel less and less good about that prediction, like with each passing day. CD holding out of training camp makes me nervous, but I'm standing on business. I made that prediction. So I'm standing on it. I think the Cowboys are winning the AFC East. The NFC East. I made this week that video that's doing really well, a lot of views. Like, go watch it if you haven't yet. I have the Chargers winning that AFC West. Okay, of course, there's a realistic, probably more realistic world where the Chiefs win that. That's the safe bet, but I'm not here to make safe bets, guys. I'm telling you, Harbaugh is the man, and he's going to get it done. You're going to see a different Chargers team this year. Even if they don't win the AFC West, at the end of the year, you're going to look at the Chargers. They're going to be in the playoffs, and you're like, dang, Harbaugh's come in. They maybe didn't put it all together this year. Maybe they're missing a wide receiver on offense, but they are freaking coming like a freight train, okay? Because that's what Harbaugh does, and I would put money on that. They're going to be a force in the AFC. If it's not this year, it's going to be in the years to come. And now I'm predicting the Jets to win the AFC East. Again, a lot of people are. I don't think I'm the only one, but I don't feel great about it because I just am not sure what to make about this. Also, last thing, I forgot to add this in. I'm going to add this in right now. The Jets traded for, why did they do this? They traded for Hassan Reddick knowing he wanted a contract, and then he's holding out because they haven't given him a contract. Gosh, like clown move by their organization. Now, the reason I didn't let that affect my decision about what the Jets are going to be is because the Jets were defensively were good without him last year. I know they lost some pieces on defense last year, but I think they're going to get this Hassan Reddick thing figured out. And Hassan Reddick is a good player, and I think that they've just got some dudes on that defense, and they're going to be able to get it done on defense. And part of that is because you've heard this before, especially in football, it really applies. The best defense is a good offense. The Jets' offense is going to be able to sustain drives. They're going to have a run game. They're going to have Aaron, who is going to be smart with the football. Like offensively, they're going to take so much pressure on that defense. Whatever they lost on defense a little bit will be made up for in the aggregate with how good their offense is going to be. And their offense was terrible last year, so they don't even have to be that much better to help the defense. Like, can you just be number 15 on offense or just number 10 on offense as a whole? Like, great. You know how much that does for your defense? I'm just telling you. If you go talk to defensive coordinators, like, what is one of the number one things you would ask for your defense? It would be for the offense to sustain drives and take pressure off their defense, give their defense a rest. Don't put them in bad positions where they have to defend a short field. And I think the Jets are just going to be able to do that. So standing on business, Jets are going to win the AFC East. It's going to be a wild ride in the AFC East this year. So there you have it. That's what I've got for you today. Guys, you've done a great job liking the videos, subscribing, keep subscribing, send it to your friends, send it to your enemies. Tell me in the comments why you think I'm crazy. If a couple people have done that. That's what that Chiefs AFC West Chargers video, Chiefs fan came in, guns a-blazing, telling me how dumb I am, and I appreciate it because it's good for my video. Okay, call me out. I love it. Okay, tell me what you think. Let me know if you have any questions, topics you want me to talk about. Okay, but I'm having so much fun. Oh, the phone's ringing. Gotta go.